In today's video, we're going to be looking at a club you probably overlook when you look at the National League North table. Today we're going to be looking at Buxton FC, but before we get into the history of the Bucks, the last 4 years, what grounds they played at, and some of the notable players, I'd really appreciate if you liked, comment, shared and subscribed, and definitely commented down below what clubs you'd like to see me cover. But before we talk about their history, let's talk about the stadiums. After being formed in 1877 as an offshoot of a local cricket club, Buxton started playing at a ground which was shared by the local cricket club. But then just after a few years they moved into a ground called Coat Lane, which was the club's first ever exclusive ground which they solely used. Then in 1884 they moved to the same plot they currently reside at, Silverlands, which was owned by their former captain. They developed the ground in 1890, adding cover and a dressing room as well, which is all important. Controversially, they planned to build a separate pavilion for working class and upper class supporters to separate the two social groups, but this went on to be rejected. A wooden stand was built on one side of the pitch, but has since been replaced by a current stand, which, just like MK Irish, took seats on the National Hockey Stadium. Silverlands took seats in 2003 from Manchester City's former ground, Main Road. On the other side of the pitch is the popular stand, which is just some covered terracing, and it stretches along the whole side of the pitch. And behind one of the goals, some more covered terracing, while the other end is left completely empty of just some fencing. As of March 2025, the ground has a capacity of 4,000 with 490 seats, making it the 6th biggest ground in National League North. Another notable fact about Silverlands is it's the highest ground in England, being 310 metres above sea level. But this is still 3,910 metres below the highest football ground in the world, the Daniel Alcides Carrion Stadium in Peru, home to 3rd Division club, Club Deportivo Ecosem Pascal. Let's give a quick rundown of the club's 148-year history. Buxton were founded in autumn 1877 as an offshoot of Buxton Cricket Club. They went on to play their first match about a month later in October, and then, in 1891, they joined the now defunct Combination League, but after finishing bottom in 1895-96, they eventually left in 1898-99. After the Manchester League was revived in 1920, Buxton rejoined and briefly considered applying for a spot in the newly formed Football League 3rd Division North in 1921, which is the equivalent of League 2, I believe. But they ultimately decided against doing that. They had a couple of strong seasons, finishing as runners-up in both 1928-29 and 1929-30, and clinching the League Cup in 1925-26 and 26-27. Their successes continue when they won the league in 31-32, which led them to join the Cheshire County League. Post-World War II, they were runners-up in the 1946-47 season and in 51-52. They then made their first appearance in the FA Cup's first round when they triumphed over Royal Marsh Welfare and defeated Aldershot 4-3, before eventually losing out to Doncaster Rovers in the 3rd round. In 1972-73 they earned promotion to the Northern Premier League, which still exists now. When the league introduced 2nd Division in 1987, Buxton were placed in the Premier Division still, where they stayed until a disappointing finish at the bottom in 1996-97, leading to relegation to Division 1. The following season saw them finish last again, resulting in another drop to the Premier Division of the Northern Counties East League. In 2005-06, Buxton claimed the Northern Counties East League Premier Division title, seeing them reach the Northern Premier League again. But that's where we're at so far. But before we talk about the last 4 seasons of the club, it would be really appreciated if you could like and subscribe to try and hit 250 subscribers before the end of 2025. We're going to start in the 2021-22 season, the 54th season of the Northern Premier League. But it's just the first time in 13 years that the Bucks saw promotion. And they did it in style, winning the league with 81 points, just 3 more than second place South Shields, 7 points more than eventual player from the Scarborough Athletic. They won 23 games that season, with the biggest win being a game against Scarborough, with the Bucks won 5-1. Out of 7 losses that came in the league, the game against Bamber Bridge was the biggest loss, which the Bucks lost 4-0. Bucks had 2 players in the top 5 goal scorers that season. Diego Di Girolamo was the club's top goal scorer with 20 goals, but was still way behind Whitby Town man, ex-Chesterfield striker Jacob Hazel, who was on 26 goals. The other player was former Derby County Nottingham Forest winner Jamie Ward, who scored 17 goals that season. Also season, they entered the FA Cup at their first round qualifying, when they were drawn away to Sherwood Colliery, which they drew 2-2 at Dibdale Park. But in the replay, the Bucks smashed the Wood 5-1, which put them en route for the next round draw, which was a home tie against Russia Olympic, who are now in the same division as Buxton. This was a very comprehensive win for Buxton as they hit for 4. The next round saw them drawn away to newly founded city of Liverpool, which saw another thrashing as the Bucks up their goal tally to 17, so about 6-1 winners. They got drawn away to FA Cup top goal scorers Kettering Town, but ended 2-2. But in the replay at Silverlands, the Bucks won out 3-1 winners. And continuing their underdog story, they reached the first round proper, beating York 1-0 away at the LNER Stadium, which was a shock considering at the time there was a whole league in between the club, because York were in National League. League One Morecambe came to town visiting the Silverlands, but unfortunately the Shrimps were too strong, beating the Derbyshire side 1-0. They didn't have the same fortune as FA Trophy as they lost the third qualifying round to Lancashire club Colne 2-1 at home. The 2022-23 season was Buxton's first in the National League North, but before they could start life at Step 2, the main man who got them promoted, Steve Cunningham, resigned, but was replaced by former Chorley manager and current Chorley chairman Jamie Vermiglio, if I've not pronounced that right, who also resigned on the 3rd of December, with the Bucks sitting in 18th, just 3 places above the relegation zone. But after former Boston manager Craig Elliott came in, the club bounced up to 11th place, just 1 point behind the final playoff spot, which is held by Gloucester, who are now the division below after getting relegated, who had just 68 points at the time. The biggest win of the season was a 4-0 win away against Chester City, which was quite remarkable considering that Chester had only lost 6 out of the 46 games they played. Buxton had lost 15 games all season, but the biggest loss was a 4-1 side against Craig Elliott's current side, Bradford Park Avenue. They had run out in the FA Cup and FA Trophy. In the Trophy, they were drawn to Croft Park to play Blythe Spartans, but unfortunately the Bucks couldn't progress as they lost to Blythe 4-2. Considering Blythe were 19th in the league, it was a bit of a shock. They had a lot more luck in the FA Cup though. They started off in the second qualifying round, beating Alfreton 2-1 at Silverlands, which gave them a chance to play Bamber Bridge, but the Bucks ran up 3-0 winners. After hammering, they were given another team below them, Hyde United, who made a 41-minute drive to Silverlands, where the home side got the win after a tight 2-1 game. In the first one proper, they were given another team below them, this time in a different country, Merthyr Town FC, who made a 3.5-hour journey from South Wales all the way to Derbyshire, only to go and lose 2-0. After playing 3 teams below them, they were given a big day out as they made a visit to Suffolk to play in the 29,673 capacity Portman Road Stadium. But unfortunately, they did lose 4-0 to Ipswich. But the experience of playing at the time an ex-Premier League stadium would have been unreal for a bunch of guys just promoted from Northern Premier League. The club had no players in the top 5 goal scorers, but the club's overall top goal scorer was long-time servant to the club and former Chesterfield striker Diego Di Girolamo, who scored just 12 goals all season, so the goals were relatively spread out. An individual at Buxton did win something this season as manager Craig Elliott won the February Manager of the Month, after being in charge for just 2 months at the time. On a side note, they also won the Derbyshire County Cup this season for the first time in 10 years. That was also their 11th time winning it, and was their 86th anniversary of winning the Derbyshire County Cup for the first time this year. The 2023-24 season was a relatively uneventful season for the Bucks, as this season was all about remaining mid-table in the National League North and just creating that stability around the club, and not turning into a yo-yo club that bounced from National League North, Northern Premier stability. The Bucks finished in 14th place, and they are 12 points above the first relegation spot held by Blythe Spartans, who were on 50 points. They are also 13th points above Curzon Ashton, who reside in the first playoff spot. So essentially, they were exactly mid-table. They won 17 games this season, with the biggest win being a 5-0 thrashing of former EFL side Darlington. Out of their 18 losses, the biggest was a 6-0 loss to 12th place side Warrington Town. The club had a player on the list of top goal scorers this season. It was former Maxwell man Diego Di Girolamo with 16 goals. Buxton did struggle in the cups this season, but it's probably best Do not focus on the cups when you're trying to just remain stable in a new division. They got knocked out in the second qualifying round of the FA Cup to Phoenix club Macclesfield, who won 2-0 at Moss Rose. In the FA Trophy, they lost 3-1 to Merseyside-based club City Liverpool 3-1 at Silverlands after making the 1 hour and 4-minute drive to the DCBL Stadium to the Silverlands. No player or manager won any individual awards this season, but one player did score a hat-trick. On the 23rd of September, Sam Osborne scored a hat-trick when Buxton thrashed Darlow 5-0. Moving on to the current season, where the Bucks currently find themselves in 9th, just 2 points off a playoff spot, currently held by Hereford on 63 points. The season is the first under a new tenureship after Craig Elliott resigned at the end of the season. Former long-time Mickleover boss John McGrath took the reins of the Bucks and may steer them to the highest finish yet. Some important things to note this season. It's the first year the Bucks are fully professional. It's a big step for any non-league club to make, and it seems to be paying off on the pitch. Speaking of pitches, after Farnsley Celtic had many issues around ownership and getting a new pitch laid at the Citadel, they moved 51 miles south and have been ground sharing with Buxton for the last few months, as Buxton have a 3G pitch. The club has won 19 games so far, the biggest win coming away to newly relegated Oxford City, which the Bucks ran rampant, securing a joint highest record away win, scoring 7. They've also lost 15 games, with the biggest loss coming to Chorley away, where the home side scored 3 goals to secure the 3 points. But for 3-0 to be your biggest loss, it's actually pretty good. So far, no one has won any individual awards, but 2 players have scored hat-tricks, with Tom Elliott scoring 3 goals on the 26th of October in a 7-1 home demolition job against 21st place Needham Market. Kean Coleman scored 3 under a month later on the 9th of November in a 3-2 away win to league leader Scunthorpe. They did progress in the Cups a little more than last season. In the FA Cup, they got drawn home to Step-Free Barwell, but home to a 2-2 draw. But then the replay at Coburg Road saw Buxton win 2-1, which put them a tie at the Silverlands of Kidderminster Harriers, who drew 1-1 with the Bucks. But at Agborough, Phil Brown's side masterminded a win as Kidderminster won 2-1. The FA Trophy was dismal as Buxton lost 1-0 at home to Darlington in the second round proper, the same side that they turned over 5-0 just the season prior. Prediction time. Look, I don't think Buxton are anywhere near the level of an EFL side in the next 5 years. I don't see them really getting any higher than maybe mid-table in National League. But I do think they'll have a season or 2 in the National League. But with the quality and the levels ever increasing at the moment, I just don't see them becoming an established Step 1 side for a while yet. But they won't drop below National League North. They will become kind of like another Brackley, hanging around, getting Step 2, getting into playoffs, but never really going up much. I imagine over 2030 they'll have spent at least 1 season in the National League, and by probably like 2050, as long as something bad doesn't happen, I imagine they'll be an established National League side, but I don't see them ever really becoming an EFL side unless something remarkable happens, but I'm talking like realms of current possibility. I don't think it's possible for Buxton, but they are fully professional, which does give them an edge over teams like Wealdstone, over teams like Dorking, like clubs that float around, because they're not fully professional, they're still semi-pro or like a hybrid system, so they can attract high quality players because they're going to get paid a full-time wage. But I think they'll keep being a Step 2 side for the next 5 years. I think they're comfortable where they are. Get a few playoff games, get used to that kind of feeling at the club, and I think they'll push on. But I think they're going to stay pretty consistent in Step 2. As this is one of the biggest sides I've covered so far on the channel, I thought I'd cover some players that have played for Buxton that you may recognise. We'll start with Will Jaskalainen, son of former Bolton and Finland goalkeeper Jussi Jaskalainen. Will currently plays for Woking, having made 77 appearances for the Step 1 side, and only played for Buxton 3 times on loan from Crewe Alex during the 2018 season. Full Pakistan international and current Oldham player Otis Khan also played for the Bucks on loan during the 2013-14 season, only touching the field twice though for the Bucks. But just 2 years later, he started in a League 2 for Yeovil. Finally, we have Jack McKay, who was formerly of Chesterfield, Leeds and Cardiff, joined the Buxton 2022-23, featured 7 times, scoring once, before moving on to Pasture's new joint, Ashford Town. He has got an honour to his name though, winning National League North playoffs with York City in 2021-22. And he currently plays for his dad's team, as his dad is a well-known agent, Willie Mackay. And he founded Doncaster City. Aidan McGeady and Charlie Mulgrew played for in a cup game, I believe. But yeah, on that note, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this one, you'll also want my video about Newport Pagnell and my video about MK Irish, who are up and coming teams in non-league at the moment. But you'd also, if you like higher opposition, you'll definitely want my video about MK Dons, because obviously that is higher opposition. Like, comment, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.